most persecuted disciple, proved that facing hostility is the ultimate confirmation of your spiritual path. When you chant in an environment that rejects your practice, you are not failing. You are standing in the exact position the Lotus Sutra predicted. This is a hard truth for the long-term practitioner. We often expect spiritual practice to smooth our external lives, yet the primary records of Shakyamuni Buddha show the opposite. When you chant in a home where others mock you, or when you face exclusion from your peers, the mind naturally searches for a reason. You ask if your faith is weak, or if your environment is simply toxic. Early Buddhism addresses this through the concept of khanti, patient endurance. The definitive precedent is the Akosa Sutta. When the Brahmin Bharadvaja approached the Buddha in a rage, hurling insults, the Buddha did not defend himself. He asked a simple question. Brahmin, if a host offers food to a guest and the guest does not accept it, to whom does that food belong? The Brahmin answered, it still belongs to the host. The Buddha then stated, just so, Brahmin. We do not accept your abuse. It still belongs to you. One who repays an angry man with anger makes things worse. Not repaying anger with anger wins a battle hard to win. This is the shield of non-reaction. By refusing to partake in the exchange of hostility, you leave the poison with the speaker. But this passive boundary is only the first step. For the practitioner facing systematic daily hostility, a quiet shield is not enough to break the cycle. To transform your life and the lives of those who oppose you, the teaching must transition from the passive detachment of early Buddhism to the radical, active reverence of the Lotus Sutra. To understand why detachment alone is incomplete, we must examine the physical threats faced by the historical Buddha. The primary records show that Shakyamuni did not live in a bubble of uninterrupted peace. His cousin, the monk Devadatta, sought to replace him by force. Devadatta hired 16 assassins to kill the Buddha on the road. When that failed, he climbed the heights of Vulture Peak and hurled a massive rock down the slope, drawing blood from the Buddha's foot. In a final attempt, Devadatta drove the handlers of Nalagiri, a fierce, man-killing elephant, to loose the beast in the streets of Rajagaha while the Buddha was walking. The Buddha did not run, nor did he strike back. When the assassins approached, his composure subdued them. When Nalagiri charged, the Buddha did not use a weapon. He projected boundless loving kindness, or metta, toward the animal. The elephant knelt before him. Yet the hostility was not limited to physical attacks. Sectarian rivals murdered a nun named Sundari and hid her body in Jeta's grove, claiming the Buddha's disciples were murderers. The people of the city harassed the monks in the streets. When Ananda suggested fleeing the city, the Buddha refused, stating that a monk must endure abuse like a battle elephant endures arrows. This is the early concept of khanti. It is the active radiation of goodwill in the presence of hate. If bandits carve you with a saw, the Buddha taught that harboring anger violates his teaching. You must keep your mind unaffected, utter no evil words, and radiate compassion for their welfare. By protecting yourself through patience, you protect others. But notice the limitation. This early framework focuses on your internal purification. It shields your mind from the poison of others, but it does not dismantle the ignorance of the person throwing the stones. It leaves the abuser in their mud. To change the abuser, the practice must become proactive. The transition to a proactive practice occurs in Chapter 20 of the Lotus Sutra. Here, Shakyamuni Buddha reveals a previous incarnation, a monk named Bodhisattva Fukyo, or never disparaging. Fukyo did not study scriptures or lecture on doctrine. His entire Buddhist practice consisted of a single action. Whenever he met a monk, nun, layman, or laywoman, he bowed to them and declared, "I deeply respect you. I dare not belittle you." Why? Because you all practice the Bodhisattva path and will become Buddhas. This was not a gentle, welcomed greeting. In a hierarchical society dominated by arrogant priests, this declaration was deeply provocative. The crowds felt mocked by his bowing. They cursed him, calling him ignorant, and attacked him. The Lotus Sutra states they struck him with sticks, wood, tiles, and stones. Yet Fukyo did not stop. When they threw stones, the sutra notes a vital detail. He ran to a safe distance, stood his ground, and continued to shout his message of reverence. This is the bridge between spiritual compassion and modern boundary setting. Fukyo did not submit to physical violence. He did not stand still and allow them to beat him. He established a physical boundary by running away, protecting his life and preventing his attackers from committing further harm. Yet, from that safe distance, he refused to withdraw his respect. He separated their temporary, hostile actions from their eternal, pure potential. He proved that you can walk away from a toxic person's physical presence while remaining completely committed to the truth of their Buddha nature. He did not let their violence dictate his state of life. By running away, he preserved his body. By continuing to bow, he preserved his vow. For the practitioner, the central question is why Fukyo had to endure such treatment. If he was practicing correctly, why did the environment react with such violence? Nichiren Daishonin explained this through the principle of Sanjo Gosho, the lessening of karmic retribution. Nichiren wrote that Fukyo was suffering in this life for actions committed in former lives. His endurance of physical abuse was not a punishment, but a rapid purification. By facing the hostility of the Fourfold Assembly with unwavering faith, Fukyo was burning off the heavy karma of past slander. The sutra states that as Fukyo neared death, having expiated his past errors, he heard the verses of the Lotus Sutra from the sky. His 6 senses were purified, his lifespan was extended by millions of years, and he achieved Buddhahood. Nichiren directly equated Fukyo's trials with his own exiles and near executions by the Kamakura authorities. He wrote in the Teradumari Gosho that the chapter Fortitude of the present is the chapter Sadapaributta of the past, and the chapter Fortitude of today must be the Sadapaributta of the future. Nichiren saw his own persecutions not as a tragedy, but as the physical reading of the Lotus Sutra. He knew that by bodily living the hardships of Bodhisattva Fukyo, he was guaranteeing his own enlightenment and that of his followers. This is the reframing of your struggle. When you face hostility for your practice, you are not being punished by bad karma. You are experiencing Sanjo Gosho. The hostility you endure is the rapid burning of past negative karma, polishing your life until your 6 senses are purified. Like Fukyo, your endurance is the direct cause of your enlightenment. Everything you need to go deeper is at nmrkob.com, or follow the link in the description or pinned comment. How do we apply this in a world that mocks your practice? First, we must understand the karmic fate of those who oppose you. The Lotus Sutra states that Fukyo's persecutors fell into the Avicii hell for 1,000 kalpas. But because Fukyo had planted the seed of Buddhahood in their lives, they were eventually saved and reborn in his assembly. Nichiren applied this to his own tormentors, writing that though they must suffer in hell, he would eventually save them. This leads to the final, crucial realization. Fukyo's practice of bowing was not submissive. Nichiren identified it as the highest form of shakuboku, the strict refutation of error. By bowing to those who hated him, Fukyo was refuting their belief that they were separate from the Buddha. He was refusing to let them remain in ignorance of their own supreme potential. To handle hostility in your life, you do not need to submit, nor do you need to retaliate. You follow the four-step protocol of the Buddha's most persecuted disciple. First, establish the physical boundary. Like Fukyo retreating from stones, physically and emotionally distance yourself from immediate danger and abuse. Second, refuse the offering. Like the Buddha in the Akosa Sutta, recognize that the hostility is theirs to carry, and you are under no obligation to accept their anger. Third, bow to their potential. Mentally affirm the obscured Buddha nature within the individual, recognizing that their hostility stems from suffering and ignorance. Finally, transform the karma. View the painful encounter not as random victimization, but as Sanjo Gosho, the vital opportunity to rapidly burn off your past karma and forge an indestructible state of life. When you stand your ground at a safe distance and continue to chant, you are not merely enduring a trial. You are actively reading the Lotus Sutra with your life. Like Fukyo, you are proving that no amount of stones can shatter the Buddha within you.